Security Minister Patricia Bullrich announced earlier this week that a radical Islamic terrorist group had been identified and the members arrested, possibly averting a major incident in the province of Mendoza. Earlier this week, Security Minister Patricia Bullrich told the media that Argentine security forces had made a series of raids and arrested 7 members of a radical Islamic terrorist group who were planning an attack in the western province of Mendoza. Along with the arrests, they found a cache of weapons and explosives. Apparently the group were planning an attack on Jewish and Christian targets and were using social media to coordinate their activities and spread hate online. The cell was exposed after a Jewish journalist reported to the police about threats he'd received via social media, and security forces moved quickly to neutralize the threat and break up the terrorist cell. While radical Islamic terrorism in Argentina might seem surprising at first, such activity isn't without precedent, and considering recent statements by President Milei, this might not be totally unexpected. I'm not one for conspiracy theories, but I'll lay out some history and let you join the dots. Argentina is home to a large Jewish community. Around 300,000 live here. Their ancestors came to Argentina as refugees, fleeing Russian Tsarist pogroms and later Nazi persecutions. Today, the Jewish community is well integrated into all levels of Argentine society, and it's common to encounter synagogues and Jewish schools around the city. Indeed, an annoyingly noisy Jewish kindergarten is just below my apartment balcony. There's also a smaller and less visible Muslim community in Buenos Aires, mainly of Syrian and Lebanese origins. Back in the 1990s, President Carlos Menem was of Syrian Muslim descent. Argentine culture is about live and let live, and people of different beliefs are generally left to go about their lives in peace. However, this hasn't always been the case. Back in 1992, a suicide bomber detonated a van full of explosives outside the Israeli embassy in downtown Buenos Aires, killing 29 people and injuring scores of others. 2 years later, in 1994, an almost identical attack completely destroyed the AMIA Jewish Cultural Center in Buenos Aires, killing 85 and injuring hundreds both inside and outside the collapsed building. Even 30 years later, no one has ever been brought to justice and the cases remain unsolved, although the finger of suspicion and a good amount of evidence points towards the terrorist organization Hezbollah and their backers, Iran. Moving into the 21st century, and South America was swept by a series of political movements known as the left wave, with socialist governments elected to power in most countries. The de facto leader of this loosely affiliated group was Hugo Chavez of Venezuela, and some of his most ardent supporters were Nestor and Cristina Kirchner here in Argentina. Chavez took to trolling the White House with a very anti-American stance. Anyone who didn't like the USA was okay by him, and by extension most of South America. This meant doing increasing amounts of trade with places like China and Putin's Russia. September the 11th was only a few years in the past, and President George Bush was deeply embroiled in very bloody wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. In very simplistic terms, both these wars were presented as anti-Islamic, so to the governments of some South American nations, building trade relations with Iran seemed like another way to annoy the USA. By 2015, Hugo Chavez had passed away, and much of the left wave was beginning to swing back in the other direction. Here in Argentina, Nestor Kirchner had also passed away, and his wife Cristina was now president. The left-wing Kirchnerist government was riddled with accusations of corruption. A lawyer and respected senior prosecutor named Alberto Nisman had taken it upon himself to investigate the connections between the 1994 AMIA bombing, Iran, and President Cristina Kirchner. In January 2015, during a Friday evening TV interview, Nisman sat with a huge pile of documents beside him and announced that he had evidence of corruption linking Cristina establishing trade relations with Iran in return for dropping investigations into the 90s bombings of the Israeli embassy and Jewish Cultural Center. Nisman said he would be presenting all the evidence before the High Court on Monday. Early that Monday morning, just hours before he was due to present the evidence, Alberto Nisman's body was found in the bathroom of his 13th floor apartment in an expensive residential building in the upmarket Puerto Madero area of Buenos Aires. There was a single gunshot wound to his head and a pistol on the floor beside him. While Nisman's death was officially ruled as suicide, there were many inconsistencies, not least the recent removal of his 10-man security detail and the unexplained failure of the stairwell security cameras in his building. The death of Alberto Nisman became a cause célèbre for the right during the election campaign later that year, and helped bring about the fall of Cristina's government and the election of the centre-right Mauricio Macri to the presidency. Without Nisman to present his evidence to the court, no charges were ever brought against Cristina or her associates regarding the suggested Iran cover-up, and the circumstances surrounding Nisman's death have never been satisfactorily investigated. Coming up to the present day, and President Milei has been very vocal about his support for Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel. Considering the current ongoing Middle East situation, picking any side in that hornet's nest is probably not a politically good move. But as has been shown many times over the last year, politics isn't really Milei's strong suit. President Milei is going through a well-publicised conversion to Judaism at the moment, and his first foreign visit after taking office was a pilgrimage to Jerusalem and a controversial meeting with Netanyahu. It's possible that Javier Milei is confusing his own personal spiritual journey with his role as President of Argentina. In a number of recent pronouncements, Milei has, perhaps justifiably, railed against Hamas and Iran. However, this has not gone unnoticed. In July, the Tehran Times, a mouthpiece for the Iranian government, suggested after 30 years of accusations, if the current anti-Iranian position continued, Argentina would be made to pay. In the context of the Iranian government's thinly veiled threats and the historical precedents, perhaps we shouldn't be too surprised about Islamic terrorists plotting murder on Argentine soil. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video interesting. If you did, please give it a like. And if you want to see more content like this, there's a couple of videos on the screen now. And if you're not already subscribed, you might want to do that too. If you want to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee in the link below. And until next time, que tengas un buen día.